warm welcome to TV Africa News and thank you for always joining us. This is Africa Today. My name is Najuma Luima, but first are the headlines. MPs put Uganda Revenue Authority on the spot over taxation. Most school fairs are set deliberately, says a police report. Sudanese demonstrate high commodity prices as police crack down on protesters. Uganda FIFA referees appointed for Zanaco CS vaccine Jubal. A warm welcome once again. Now the news in detail. Members of Parliament from various parliamentary committees have accused Uganda Revenue Authority of suffocating businesses by overtaxing and creating unfavorable environment for them. These committees included the Committee's own budget and National Economy, Public Accounts Committee, COSASE, and East African Affairs. We have more. This event took place at Serena Hotel, where URA held a strategic engagement with MPs to discuss issues of domestic revenue mobilization for development strategy review under the theme Liberating Uganda from Economic Dependency. During the engagement, where journalists were locked out, TV Africa understood that MPs were not happy about how the tax body has handled the business community. During the engagement, a number of MPs cited various businesses that were frustrated by URA, including their own, hence creating a chaotic discussion. Sources told TV Africa that Ida Nantaba, the Kayunga woman MP, wondered why the tax body is not interested in helping Ugandans to start business, invest in the country, and be able to sustainably run those businesses. She reportedly said, whereas there is need to widen tax base, the tax body is not allowing businesses to take off and thrive. Sources told TV Africa that Dr. Michael Lurume Baiga, MP Buyikwe South, questioned whether URA cares whether the businesses from which taxes are collected always survive or not. URA's Commissioner General John Musinguzi is said to have retorted that MP's commitment and support of taxation is very important in realizing Uganda's economic independence. The Ministry of Health has launched community TB awareness screening and testing for bus operators and communities around the transport sector to help control the disease. This is among the many activities that the ministry has organized to create awareness about tuberculosis and leprosy as Uganda joins the rest of the world to commemorate World TB Day on 24th of March this year.
Speaking at the event held at Namayaba Bus Park in Kampala, the Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Health, Dr. Diana Atwine, said the transport industry is one of the areas that are significantly affected by tuberculosis, since their working condition exposes people to the disease and many of the bus operators become reluctant when it comes to seeking health care.
Men dominate this industry. They never get time to go for checkup. You heard from the bus owner that one of their staff was sick for a while but continued working. Their kind of work exposes them but also becomes a risk, a big risk for them to seek health care. And therefore they remain with many diseases, and by the time they come to us, sometimes it is very late to salvage or to do anything.
The aim is to identify those who have TB early and start them on treatment so that they can reduce the transmission to neighboring communities.
So we are here to see that we identify them early, start them on treatment so that they don't become very sick, they can continue with their work, but also we are protecting and preventing transmission to the rest of the people that they work with or the people that they are transporting during these long journeys.
The spread of tuberculosis is determined by the status of one's health, economic and social status, poor nutrition, among many other factors. The activity will be carried out in different bus parks in Kampala. This year's commemoration of World TB Day will be held in Lira City under the theme Invest in Ending TB to Save Lives. Uganda is one of the 30 World Health Organization designated countries with a high burden of TB/HIV. In 2019, the estimated incidence rate for TB was 200 per 100,000 population and the mortality rate was 35 per 100,000 population. In 2019, 65,897 TB cases were notified. Nalgo Muyingo, Africa Today.
A police preliminary report on the recent spout of fires in schools since the start of the year has indicated that most of them have been deliberately set by unknown people. We have more. Speaking on Monday, the Police Director for Fire and Rescue Services, AIGP Joseph Mogisa, said investigations indicate that most of the fires are set deliberately by unknown individuals who target school dormitories. In the last 3 months, since schools resumed in January, at least 18 incidents of fires have been reported in several parts of the country. In January, 4 children were killed when fire broke out in the dormitory of Newcrest Junior at Chibedide and Boarding Primary School in Kawempe, while several others were left injured. In February, a 12-year-old pupil died in a fire that gutted the dormitory of Good Times Primary School in Kawara in Kampala, whereas last week, a 14-year-old Emmanuel Muwumba died in a fire that gutted one of the dormitories of St. Joseph Senior Secondary, Nakanyonyi in Jinja. The Police Director for Fire and Rescue Services, AIGP Joseph Mogisa, explained that preliminary investigations indicate that most of the fires were set when learners were out of the dormitories either for supper or during prep time. Whereas in the unfortunate incident at Chibedide Boarding Primary School in Kawempe in January, the fire started when learners were asleep in the dormitory. The police preliminary report, however, indicates that in all the other incidents, it has been done when learners are out. Let's take a quick break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, The Right to Know. Security forces fired bullets and tear gas canisters Monday in an attempt to disperse thousands of Sudanese protesters against military rule and inflation, which has been worsening since the October coup. Let's take a look.
Since the coup of General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan on October 25th, the country, one of the poorest in the world, has lost its international aid and is now caught in the throat by the rise in prices of grain and oil due to the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. On Sunday, the price of bread rose from 35 to 50 Sudanese pounds, or from 5 to 7 euro cents, and the cost of transport rose by 50%. Faced with thousands of demonstrators, many of them high school students in Damazin, 800 kilometers southeast of Khartoum, security forces fired tear gas, witnesses told AFP, also reporting live fire. Tear gas canisters also rained down in Nyala in western Darfur, according to eyewitnesses, as thousands of high school students and residents chanted no education in the disastrous conditions and no to military rule. Since the push of the army chief, the repression has left 87 people dead and hundreds injured, according to pro-democracy doctors. Thousands of anti-push protesters also marched in Atbara, 250 kilometers north of Khartoum, where railway workers began a strike on Saturday, which they say is indefinite. The demonstrators denounced the repression, but also the control of the military on the politics and the economy of Sudan, controlled by almost continuously by generals in 66 years of independence.
Moving on, despite abundant water resources and millions of hectares of arable land, the Central African Republic is hungry. Nearly half of the population is in a state of food emergency, according to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. This is a situation inherited from decades of armed conflict and poor governance in a country where mineral extraction is the focus of political ambitions and offers more immediate income to unskilled youth. Even food agriculture is barely developed. Cassava, the staple of meals, is 2/3 imported. The millions poured in international organizations in food aid are perceived by many Central Africans as emergency responses at the expense of development. The civil wars and exactions of numerous armed groups over the past 20 years have relatively sparred this forest area. It is here that a handful of private investors have decided to capitalize on the immense but still largely untapped agricultural potential of this country, the second least developed in the world according to the UN. It is rare to see a truck passing on the road from Baiki, the capital of Lobaye, to Bangui, the only paved road in the region, and even rarely to see a plantation. The asphalt serves as a cassava dryer for the villagers. Inherited from the French colonial period, the agricultural sector based on the export of unprocessed products has not withstood the fluctuations in world prices since independence in 1960. Away from that, the Republic of Chad on Monday handed over the leader of an anti-Balaka armed group, Maxime Mokom, to the International Criminal Court on suspicion of war crimes and crimes against humanity, according to the confirmation by the Hague Court on Monday. Mokom is suspected of war crimes and crimes against humanity allegedly committed in Bangui and other locations in the Central African Republic in 2013 and 2014, according to the statement released by the ICC. The country was plunged into its worst crisis since independence after longtime Christian leader Franco Bozize was ousted by rebels from the Seleka force in March 2013, triggering a wave of violence with anti-Balaka militias. The is one of the world's economically disadvantaged countries, despite its rich natural resources, with a history of unrest since independence from France, including the despotic rule of self-proclaimed Emperor Jean-Bedel Bokassa in the 1960s and 1970s. Despite a 2019 peace deal, militia groups that emerged during the conflict were recently in control of around two-thirds of the country, and Touadéla depends heavily on UN forces as well as military personnel sent by Russia and Rwanda. A counter-offensive has seen pro-government forces retake a series of towns from the rebels in recent days. Touadéla won a presidential election in December from which Bozize was banned, but barely a third of the potential ballots were cast. The Senegalese army announced on Sunday night that it had launched an operation against rebels in Casamance, the scene of an old conflict in the south of the country.
This offensive is launched less than 2 months after the death of 4 Senegalese soldiers and the capture of 7 others by the rebels in the border area with Gambia. The 7 soldier members of the West African military mission in the Gambia have since been released. According to the statement released by the Senegalese General Staff, as part of their Regalian missions of securing people and property, the armies launched an operation on Sunday, March 13, 2022, whose main objective is to dismantle the bases of the Movement of Democratic Forces of Casamance faction of Salif Sadio, located along the northern border with Gambia. Casamance has been the scene of one of the continent's oldest conflicts since independence fighters took to the streets with rudimentary weaponry after the repression of an MFDC march in December 1982. The rebellion has thrived on peculiarities of this fertile region, which is largely isolated from Senegal by the Gambia and prone to feelings of neglect. After claiming thousands of lives and ravaging the economy, the conflict has persisted at a slow pace, with flashpoints like the massacre of 14 men near Zinguinka in 2018. The trial of these events is scheduled to begin in a few days.
Let's once again take a quick break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, the right to know. In our business news today, Royal Air Maroc took off from Morocco's economic capital, Casablanca, bound for Tel Aviv on Sunday in the carrier's first direct flight to the Jewish state since the two countries normalized ties in 2020.
Aviation sources and local media sources say that a Moroccan business delegation was on the inaugural flight, delayed by 3 months because of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to a tweet from David Govrin, head of Israel's liaison office in the Arab state, no one would believe that Casablanca Tel Aviv are for €400. Israel and Morocco restore their relations under the 2020 US-backed Abraham Accords, normalizing ties between the Jewish state and several Arab countries. The Moroccan carrier RAM is to fly 4 times a week between Casablanca and Tel Aviv, while Israel Airlines launched flights to Morocco's Marrakesh last July, although they were suspended in late November because of coronavirus travel curbs. Morocco is counting on 200,000 visitors from Israel, many of whose 700,000 strong Jewish community of Moroccan origins have retained close cultural links.
In our health news today, Algeria's President Abdelmadjid Tebboune ordered on the banning of exports of all consumer products that Algeria imports, such as sugar, pasta, oil, semolina, and all wheat derivatives. The announcement followed a meeting of the Council of Ministers. Let's take a look.
The presidential decision means that not only Algerian economic operators are not allowed to export food products made from imported raw materials, but also they risk legal action in case of infringement. In addition, the President of the Republic asked the government to continue to ban completely the import of frozen meat and to encourage the consumption of locally produced meat. On Sunday, an official at the Ministry of Commerce announced the import in anticipation of Ramadan, which begins in early April, of 3,000 tons of frozen meat out of a total of 54,000 tons of fresh and frozen red meat.
And finally, in sports news today, Confederation of Africa Football has appointed a state of Uganda referees to officiate the upcoming CAF Confederation Cup contest between Zambia's Zanaco and Tunisian opponents CAS Fexin at the Heroes National Stadium, Lusaka City in Zambia. The game will be played on Sunday, 28th March this year. We have more. Ali Sabila Chelengate will handle Zanaco against CAS Fexin as the center referee. Countrymen Ronald Katenya and Emmanuel Okudra are the first and second assistant referees, respectively, with Masoud Salih as the fourth official. The match commissioner is Inacio Manuel Candido from Angola. Salah Ahmed Mohamed Saleh of Sudan will be the referee assessor. South Africa's Poso Valencia Mohami as the general coordinator. Zambian Desmond Katongo is the appointed media officer, with Kenyan Evans Ocharo Arumba as the security officer. Another Zambian, Joseph Kabugo, is the COVID-19 officer. Egyptian club Pyramids lead the standings with 10 points from 4 matches. They are closely followed by Libya's Al Ahly Tripoli with 9 points, CAS Safin as 6 points, and Zanaco is yet to get any point in 4 matches. That was the news. Thank you for always keeping it TV Africa. Please do stay tuned. More programming coming your way.